business that's actually wrecking your own opportunity to grow and to scale your business. And this is part of the introduction to my book, again, Mastering the Art of Business Development. I'm looking forward to that coming out. Let's jump right in. What I want to show you, common mistakes, how these missteps occur. I want to give you some quick tips to overcome those so that you can prepare for scalable success going forward. Fair enough? All right. Got to be audience participation, or I get to do what my instructor did to me. A little participation, I get to kick snot out of you. So, all right, are we good to go? All right, let's rock on. One of my favorite quotes is from Albert Einstein. I love this guy. When we think of Albert Einstein, what do we think of? E equals MC squared, right? We think of this guy as one of the guys that helped create the atomic bomb that put an end to World War II. But Albert Einstein was a brilliant strategist of human theory. And I want you to notice this quote. The world that we've created is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. Now, I want you to think about your business for just a minute. Your business, as it exists today, is a construct of your thinking. Everything you've learned, every experience you've had, all the knowledge and wisdom you've gained have taken your business to the point it is right now. But if you want to grow that business, you want to expand that business, you want to have more influence and you want to have more impact, what do you have to do? You first have to change the quality of your thinking. Now, that takes me to another quote that I think is really, really important, and that was by the McDonald's brilliant franchise guy, started out as a milkshake salesman. He meets these two brothers that have developed this system for creating hot food, delivering it fast, and doing it inexpensively. And they had these great restaurants, two of them in Southern California, but they couldn't expand beyond two. This milkshake salesman by the name of Ray Kroc goes to these two brothers and says, if you'll let me franchise this business, I'll make you a household name and I'll take McDonald's around the world. And he literally did. I remember in 2015, I had the opportunity to travel to Zambia to do a pastors and leaders conference, and I spent 10 days in the country of Zambia. Then I traveled to South Africa, did the same thing there. On the way home, after spending 15 days in Africa, wondering some days what I was eating, I flew to Qatar to fly back to the United States. Why they took us that way, I don't know, but we ended up in Qatar. And when I landed in Qatar and I got off into this beautiful airport, the first thing I saw was the Golden Arches. And I said, after 15 days of wondering if this food was really edible or not, I know exactly what I'm going to get. Big Mac, large fries, and large Coca-Cola. Made my day because I actually had the opportunity to eat something I knew and I understood. But notice what he says. As long as you're green, you're growing. But once you're ripe, you start to rot. Now, one of the things I find over having been in this industry now almost 40 years and talking to financial professionals, many of us get to the point in our lives we think we know it all. We get showing up to events like this. We stop learning and growing and studying and becoming a better version of understanding human behavior, understanding changes in the tax law, and staying abreast to all these things that Alpine and their team does an incredible job of doing. When you do that and you quit growing yourself, you start to rot. And we've got enough rotten advisors in our industry. We were talking about those this morning, about some of the rotten advisors and what they've done to our industry. If you don't want to be rotten, you got to continue to grow yourself, because at some point when you stop, your clients are going to pick up on that. And when they pick up on that at some point, they're going to say, thank you, but no thank you. I'm going to go talk to somebody else. This is important. So here's something I want to challenge you on, and this is a rule that if you will implement this one thing into your life, it will change the way you live the rest of your lives. One of the things we know from studying human behavior and studying how the brain works, we develop new habits and we learn and grow when we're curious every day. Curiosity is the key to staying informed and learning and growing. So every morning when I get up, I ask myself 3 questions. What can I learn today? And from what I learned today, what's at least one thing I can apply to my life to make me better today than I was yesterday? And then what I've learned and what I've applied, what can I then teach today to someone else to help them on that journey? Because when we learn something, that's great. But until we apply what we've learned, that knowledge is useless to us. It's like winding up a clock and never pressing the button for the clock to start ticking. All that energy is wrapped up in that spring, but until we let that clock start ticking, that spring never has an opportunity, and that energy remains pent up and unused. But when we apply it, we begin to release it to our lives. But when we teach it to someone else, it tells our brain, this is important, and it's important enough that if you're going to teach it to somebody else, you need to make sure you store it in your long-term memory so you don't forget it. This right here will help you begin to change your life as you have an opportunity to grow. Now, is there anybody in the room that would say, I don't want any more success? I'm happy where I am. I don't want to make another dime the rest of my life. I'm content with what I'm making, and I don't want to grow. Anybody? I actually had a guy in Florida when I did this presentation in Florida raise his hand. And I'm like, then why are you here? And he wanted to argue the entire presentation and made a complete fool of himself by the time it was done. But that was the first guy, Dan, in 40 years that said, I don't want to grow. And I looked at him, I said, your clients don't want you either. And his son that was supposed to be given the business wasn't even in the room too. And I'm like, this is not good. Now, do you recognize this? If you're familiar with the martial arts at all, we have the symbol of yin and yang. And most people think of that as good and evil, but I want you to think of it in a different way, because when I see the yin and yang as it applies to our business, I see success and I see failure. And every day when we get out to have an opportunity to meet with our clients, sometimes we win and we get the sale. But there are elements inside of that success. When we write that application, we get that money under investment, we take that contract, whatever it is, there's an element of failure in there that had we not done certain things right, that yes, could have turned into a no. But at the same time, every time we get a no, there's a lesson inside that failure that as we stop and examine that failure, what did we not do we should have done? Or what did we do that we should not have done to take that failure and turn it into success? And as we look at success and failure and examine those every day, we look at the success and say, what worked? How can I make it better? We look at the failure and say, where did I fail? Why did I fail? What do I need to change so I don't do that again? That's the power of the yin and yang, but failure is a part of our lives. And when we fail, it's important that we learn from that failure. Because guess what? If we go back to the beginnings of human history, we look at different groups that have lived and died throughout history, what have we found? The groups that didn't learn from their mistakes, what did they do? They repeated them. And if they repeat the same mistake over and over, those groups ultimately faded out and they're no longer around today. That's why we don't have Neanderthals today. They failed to adapt, they failed to learn, they failed to grow. They're no longer here. Now, Henry Ford said this about failure, and I love this statement. And this is something I want you to adopt as a mindset every time you get a no. Or every time you think you got them close, Jay, and all of a sudden they're like, nah, I think I'm going to wait, and maybe we'll do this in 6 months or a year. Notice what he says. Failure's the opportunity to begin again, but this time more intelligently. As we have an opportunity to study failure, Dr. John Maxwell, one of my friends and mentors, wrote a book several years ago called Failing Forward. And he told my daughter at the age of 17, he said, Jesse, I want you to learn one lesson. If you never learn anything else from me, learn this. I want you to fail early. I want you to fail often, but I want you to fail forward. And if we fail early, fail often, and fail forward, you're going to be success. Because every successful person, and I talk about that in my book, Black Belt Secrets of Success, every person throughout history that has been successful became successful through failure. And so it's learning from failure that gives us an opportunity to grow. Now, why is this important to you? 2/3 of all businesses fail within the first 10 years. The major reason they fail, it's avoidable mistakes. And success is a mix of strategy, it's a mix of skill, but it's also avoiding self-sabotage. The things we do to ourselves without realizing that cause us to screw up the opportunity to grow our business. And I want to spend a minute talking about 7 success saboteurs that may be lurking in the shadows of your business. Now, I was telling Tim in the back, because when he said saboteurs, he said, dude, I like that word. And I said, well, that word actually comes from the ancient samurai culture. We think of the samurai from the movies as these incredible assassins that would slip in the middle of the night wearing all black, and they'd slit your throat, or they'd take off your head and they'd carry it back in a sack and they'd show it to the shogun and say, look what I've done. But if you study the history of the samurai, here's what you find. They were saboteurs by design. And the role of the samurai was to probe the defenses of a nation that the shogun wanted to conquer and to discover through sabotage and through manipulation to find a way to either bring that government down from the inside through manipulation and control, or find the areas of weakness where they could ultimately bring the army in to wreak havoc inside the business. Now, the first of the 7 saboteurs is a failure to differentiate. I asked this young lady right here, and I'm going to pick on you for just a minute. I hope that's okay because I'm going to do it anyway. All right. So I asked this young lady when I met her today, I said, tell me what you do. And you said what?
Sell annuities.
She says, I sell annuities. I'm an annuity agent. Well, that's great. That's good. I now know what you do. But how many of you guys in the room also sell annuities? Raise your hand. I want you to look around the room for just a second. All right. If you just sell annuities and that's all you tell your client you do, you're no different than anybody else in the room. And as we look at our industry, and I travel and I speak at conferences like this all the time, and here's what I hear. Oh, I'm an investment advisor representative. Oh, I'm a stockbroker. Well, I'm a life insurance expert. I'm a long-term care professional. I'm an estate planning professional. Great. I'm glad that's what you do, but to the eyes of the public, the customer you're wanting to talk to, they don't give a rat's hind end about whether you sell annuities, life insurance, long-term care, any of that. What they want to know is, what can you uniquely do to solve my problem? And until you're having that conversation with those clients, you're getting about 40% of the opportunity you could be getting, because the vast majority of the public doesn't care about your product. They don't care about your service. They've got a problem that's keeping them awake at night. And until you find a way to talk about that and let them know this is what I do, you're sabotaging your opportunity to grow. You're in what I call the people pile. And for you to get out of the people pile, you've got to find a way to stand out as unique and different in the marketplace, so that when somebody says, what do you do? I love the question that you asked in the back. What's your 30-second elevator pitch? I had a lady ask me that the other day. My daughter is currently Miss Missouri. And when she was competing in a pageant for the national title, I got in the elevator and somebody saw my shirt that said Black Belt Leadership. And they said, what is that? And as we're going on the elevator from the first floor to the second floor, I said, I help individuals and organizations discover, develop, and deploy their own unique black belt leader, so I can create world-class teams that can perform without a leader and achieve incredible results. And she looked at me and she says, that's good. She said, where are you going? And so I said, I'm going to my room. So she ended up following me to the 8th floor, asking me questions about my business, and I ended up booking a speaking engagement as a result of that. Why? Because I had an opportunity to say who I was, that spoke to a need that she and the group that she works with has. But every single day when I go in events like this and I ask advisors, what do you do? I hear the same thing. You've got to differentiate. So you got to answer this question. What is it that makes you unique and different? What is it that makes you stand out? Why do your clients keep coming to you, and what's the problem that you're best at solving? That needs to be part of your story when you're talking to your community. We don't need another insurance agent. We don't need another stockbroker. We don't need another investment advisor. We need problem-solving individuals that help our clients understand, I've got a solution to the problem that's keeping you awake at night. I can help you achieve that goal, that dream, that objective that you've thought about for the last 30 years but didn't know if you could do it or not. I can show you how you can retire and have a paycheck the rest of your life. I just sold an annuity without talking about an annuity. Those little things like that matter. Now, the second thing is this, and it's poor financial planning. Because here's what I see with a lot of financial professionals. As they have an opportunity in their business to begin to grow, they get to a certain level of income in their business, and all of a sudden they get comfortable. And then lifestyle creep shows up. And rather than investing back in their business, what do? They go buy the Mercedes. They go buy the new house. They go buy the ski boat. They go take their wife on a trip around the world, and they start investing in fun and frivolities and stuff, and they forget it's that engine that is your business that drives your lifestyle. And the minute you stop investing in your business, all of a sudden your business starts to plateau. And I see this over and over and over again that happens in this industry. So here's the question. Have you truly counted the cost of what it's going to take for you to continue to invest in your business to take it to the next level? If you're spending $1,000 a month on marketing and it's getting you X, how much are you going to have to spend in additional marketing to get in front of more customers to take it to Y or Z? That's a question only you can answer, but you've got to figure that out instead of just getting content This is all we're ever going to spend, because if that's all you're ever going to spend, that's all you're ever going to get. So being able to stretch that is going to be important. The third one is this: having a weak sales and marketing strategy, if you've got one at all. You know, if you build it, they will come only works in the movies. I remember in 1987, I went to work for this company called Prudential. And I got my insurance license, I got my securities license, I got my sign, I got my phone, I got my desk, I got my copier. I moved into my little strip mall office and I put up my sign and I thought, this is great. Started handing out business cards. My phone's going to ring off the wall. People are going to start walking in because everybody wants to buy life insurance. Well, guess what? That didn't happen. I literally had to do some work. I had to get on the phone. I had to call people. I had to begin to engage in conversations. And I had to realize if I don't have a strategy to tell people who I am and what I do, and I'm not daily delivering on that, then nobody knows who I am and what I do. And I'm sitting in my office as the invisible man or the invisible woman. And as a result of that, my business doesn't grow. But how often do we think what we've always done is going to work? Well, we just heard a few minutes ago about AI. You know, I was talking to a group the other day, and they're actually, Dan, they're doing AI outbound phone calls. And I know you guys are working on that. But they're actually having an AI bot that's doing outbound calls to their clients to talk to them about reviews. They think they're talking to somebody in the office. At the United States Martial Arts Hall of Fame, I have an AI bot that runs our website. And every time somebody goes to the website and they want to have a conversation about the United States Martial Arts Hall of Fame and to learn what we do, Rachel meets them at the door when they come in. And Rachel says, how can I help you today? And Rachel begins to have an incredible conversation with them. I had 3 of my grandmasters call me and said, John, I don't know where you found this girl, but you're not paying her enough. She is absolutely amazing. Well, I had to tell them after about 3 months of her being on there, because I didn't tell anybody we were doing this experiment, I had to tell them she was AI. And they're like, you're kidding me. I said, no. They said she talks in just these amazing conversations. And they said, anything we ask, she can answer. And I said, well, she just, when you get a question she doesn't answer, I get an email that says, how do I answer this? And so as training her to answer questions, she now runs all of the website stuff for the United States Martial Arts Hall of Fame. My inbox for the Hall of Fame went from hundreds of emails today down to about 10 because she's handling all that for me. As we have people that want to be nominated, people that want to sign up for our annual national training camp, she actually takes the information, pre-populates the form, and then when it's done, gives them a link to click to pay to have an opportunity to sign up to attend one of our training camps. AI is literally going to change our business, and if you're not leaning into that, as you heard from the guys at Lincoln, you're going to get left behind. And if you listen to the guys at Anthropic that run Claude, competitor to OpenAI, he says within the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see about 20 to 25% of most of the entry-level jobs in the United States replaced by AI. I met a guy last week that I was talking with that runs a big chicken company, and they sell chicken at a restaurant, and I'm not going to give out the brand, but they actually now have an AI robot thing that they built that cooks everything. And they're going to have a couple of people that load the ingredients when they come in the morning. They're going to make their order on a kiosk, and they're going to have a machine in the back that cooks, that wraps, and delivers. And they're now going to take their staffing down from running a staff of 12 to a staff of 4 to be able to run locations all over the United States. That's where this is going. But back to sales and marketing strategy, here's the question you got to answer. What does your brand say about you? You were to ask somebody, tell me who I am, tell me what I do, tell me why I'm different. What does your brand say about you? If all your brand says is insurance and investments, we got to go back to number 1. You're still in the people pile. But if your brand speaks to what you do differently than anybody else, and that becomes the focus of what you're doing, now you have an opportunity to stand out, be unique, and be different. And you're going to attract the type of clients to you that you want to attract. We did this experiment in the martial arts community and went to talk to martial arts schools across the country. And I said, let's talk about what your brand says about you. Because we got Taekwondo, we got karate, we got Kempo, we got Jiu-Jitsu, we got Jeet Kune Do, we got Krav, we got Hapkido, we got Aikido, hundreds and hundreds of different brands. To the public, they're all alike. But as we began to talk about those schools and what they do uniquely and differently, they quit talking about their martial arts. And they looked at their ideal client and they said, we help kids with ADD and ADHD that can't pay attention in school learn how to do better and make better grades. Well, guess what happened? They've now got a class full of ADHD kids bouncing off the walls, learning discipline and control, and their grades are going up. We've got another school in New Jersey we work with that says we work with individuals that struggle with disabilities. And if you are a special needs individual that wants to learn martial arts, we've adapted the martial arts to help you learn and grow and do things you never thought you could do. You show up at their school and they got people in wheelchairs, on crutches, with mobility issues and other issues all in the classroom, and they're now adding a third studio because it's just blowing up and exploding. When you identify what you uniquely do in the business and who your customer is, and you speak to that customer and that customer only, they're going to come out of the woodwork to find you, but other people are going to look and say, hey, I know you work with this type of client, and that's not me, but I see the results you're getting for them. Can you help me too? And all of a sudden, by narrowing down your niche, you literally expand your opportunity in ways that you never thought possible. Next one is this: failure to systemize, to delegate, and to automate. This is one of the biggest issues I find that is one of the major problems in our issue. I interviewed Caitlin Graham yesterday for a podcast that I do. She runs a company called the Admin Effect. And the Admin Effect literally becomes the back office of your financial services firm. And as a result of that, they implement systems and processes so that as you get out, everything works on schedule. Because here's what happens with a lot of financial professionals in our industry. They start out as a solopreneur, a one-man band, one-woman band. And as they begin to grow, they ultimately have been doing everything for a long, long time. And then Frank gets to the point he needs a staff member. So Frank brings somebody in, but he only lets him do the little menial things because Frank's like, well, I don't know if I can teach her to do that or not. So I'm just going to keep doing it. And as a result of that, she's answering the phone, taking notes, maybe doing some filing, making some copying, but she's never really taking an opportunity to take anything off your plate that can allow you to go see more customers. Here's something I want you to write down: 80-20. 80-20, the Pareto principle. If you're not spending 80% of your day doing the 20% of things you're best at doing, you're sabotaging your success. If you've got somebody in your organization that can do a task that you don't like to do, that is not the best use of your time, and they can do that 80% as well as you can, you need to give them that assignment, let them own it, and go back to doing what you do best. That 80-20 rule, if you're spending 80% of your day doing the 20% of things you're best at doing, that gives you an opportunity to stratospherically scale your business to a level that you never believed is possible. But if you're not automating, I talked to people today, and I saw a group the other day that still doesn't have a CRM. How you run a business without a CRM, I don't understand. And if somebody comes in and they hit a landing page that you've created to invite somebody to a workshop, do you have something automated that they automatically start getting emails and follow-ups, that you get a note to say, hey, this individual needs a phone call from you to remind them about the event, or somebody in your office? These automations, little things, make a difference in our business. But if we fail to implement the little things, it's problematic. So next is customer engagement, or lack thereof. One of the main reasons I find that consumers leave their agent, their advisor, their financial planner is, hey, they sold me a great product and we got started, and then I don't hear from them for 12 months. They come see me on the annual review because they want to sell me something again, but other than that, I never hear from them. Well, if you look in the mirror, you're going to find that you are what? A human being. But we act like humans doing. And when we act like humans doing, and we remain task-oriented with our clients, we never create the connection with them that they feel like we truly care, we truly value them, we truly hear them, and that we have their best interest at heart. And when they don't feel seen, heard, valued, and appreciated throughout the year, to them, you're nothing more than just somebody that's trying to sell them something. The best financial advisors I've seen in this industry engage with their clients, and they have a minimum of 10 touches throughout the year. At least once a month, they're touching their client, either through a phone call, an email, a handwritten postcard. They're doing something to engage that client, and they're spending time in life with them. Here's a little tip. If you've got somebody in your office that you can dedicate a little time to, have them find all of your clients' Facebook pages, and have them interact on your behalf on their personal Facebook page. Because when you start doing that, oh, you got a new dog. Wow, that's fantastic. Let me tell you about my dog. And you start having these non-financial conversations, all of a sudden you stop being their financial guy and you start becoming an extended member of their family. And now they think of you not just as Dan, my insurance guy, or Jay, my financial guy, they start saying, well, Jay's my friend. Jay noticed that I got a new dog. Jay leaned in when he saw that my parakeet died. Jay, when he saw I had a flat tire, reached out and said, hey, did you get that car taken care of? Did it damage your vehicle? And did you have to do anything else other than get the tire changed? Interacting and spending life with our clients not only endears them to us, our clients start talking about us. And when they start talking about us, you get connected to their inner circle of 8 to 10 people they know that have many of the same financial problems and issues they have that you can't yet get to, and they will do your marketing for you when you do that one thing. So here's the question. How do you create an exceptional experience? Now, what do I mean by that? Every time your client interacts with you, if you just meet expectations, that's the minimum. Everybody meets expectations, but what do you do to make it unique and different? I went to visit a financial friend of mine that lives in the Dallas, Texas area, and when I walked into his office, I was greeted by his staff. My name was up on the television when I walked in the door, and it said, "Welcome, John." And when I came in, one of his assistants met me at the door. She says, "Are you John?" I said, "Yes." She says, "I'm glad you're here." She says, "I understand you like chocolate chip cookies." And she brings me a plate of hot chocolate chip cookies and hands them to me while I'm waiting. She says, "I also understand you love Mountain Dew. I have one of those for you too." And so I'm just there for a visit, but I'm already treated as a special guest. And I'm like, dude, whatever this guy needs me to do, I don't care if he pays me or not, I'm going to help him do something today because I got cookies and I got a Mountain Dew. And as I'm leaving, she knows I'm also a gummy bear fan. And not just gummy bears, but Haribo. And so as I'm leaving, she says, "John, I know you got a long trip home." She says, "We got you a 5-pound bag of Haribo to take with you and another Mountain Dew." And I'm like, I love you guys. I will be back. But how often do we create an exceptional experience for our client that wows them? Because when we wow them, guess what? That generates curiosity. That causes them to lean in and want to do more with you because you're paying attention to them in a way that nobody else is doing. Poor time management. Is this the best use of your time right now? We spend way too much time doing this, way too much time answering emails, way too much time engaging in busy work, not productive work. So I want you to do this for the next week. Stick this on the bathroom mirror. Write it on a sticky note so every morning you got to see it that when you go to work, it says, is this the best use of my time right now? And think about that throughout the day with everything you're doing, and here's what you're going to find. You're going to spend less time doing lazy work and busy work and more time doing the important, productive work that's going to move your business forward. The last of the 7 is this: a failure to adapt and a failure to innovate. We've talked about AI, but here's what's going on in the world around us today. And these are just a few things that I thought of along the way that we might think about. If you don't have a CRM in your business, I don't know how you're going to function. If you don't have a way for people to connect